Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Play, Pause, Rewind. It is our 104th episode. It's been a busy couple weeks. Niles, how have you been since our last recording?
Oh, I've been great. There was a little cat in my lap here just a minute ago, but he had to
Oh,
get up because I had to go reset Wi-Fi again.
oh
But
no.
I've been good. It's been busy. We've gone out and gone to do some cool things. Experienced some of the life in Denver. We know how to cook sushi now. We took a cooking class, so
Cool.
that'll be our next dinner party, sushi, whenever we have one. How are you, Dylan?
Oh, doing pretty good. It's just been same old on my end. I have not learned how to cook sushi. I have not learned how to cook much of anything new recently, actually. Um, but
That's
that's fine.
okay.
Yep. I I've just been playing video games and reading books and doing a little bit of writing. So I'm practicing that.
Yeah.
More
Yeah,
to
gotta
come on
hone
that
those
in the
skills.
more to come on that in the far future. but as always on this show, we are reviewing a movie or TV show. In this case, a movie. Our format is we'll do a few minutes non spoilers at the start and then transition into spoilers with a spoiler warning. So look out for that. But this week we are talking about Captain America Brave New World, written by
Mm.
Rob Edwards, Malcolm Spellman, Dalaban Masan, Julius Ona, Peter Glanz, and directed by Julius Ona. Captain America Brave New World follows Sam Wilson in his new role as Captain America as he attempts to navigate his contentious relationship with the now president Thaddeus Ross while also investigating a conspiracy to assassinate the president and destabilize an already tense political situation. The film stars Anthony Mackie, Harrison Ford, Danny Ramirez, Shira Haas, Carl Lumber, Tim Blake Nelson, and Giancarlo Esposito. Niles, what are your initial thoughts on Captain America Brave New World?
Well, before I say anything about my thoughts, I'd like to say that I think of myself as more optimistic and not as cynical as most Marvel fans these days. I think just
Or
in
most
general, too.
YouTubers, yeah.
Yeah, I think just in general, I like to, or I do my best, I will say,
Mm-hmm.
to focus on the positives because I know that sometimes I do on this show, I do hone in on some of the things I don't like as much, and I talk about those things more. But I try my best to not be a nitpicky asshole and just really lament all of the decisions that I think went wrong and really just
mm-hmm.
analyze the shit out of things. I'm like, if you give me a good story with good strong characters, more often than not, I'm on board. I will say.
Yeah.
That said, going into this movie, I had low expectations. I did. I really had low
Uh-huh.
expectations going to this theater, just like based on the marketing and just based on like kind of initial reviews that I'd seen online. I hadn't read anything going
Mm-hmm.
into it, and I will say, because I'm a little more optimistic, I don't think that this is a bad movie, but I don't think
Okay.
it's good either. I think it's fine. It's the kind of fine that's just kind of middling on
Mm-hmm.
mediocrity and just kind of dissipates into like the ether very quickly after you watch it. You're like, what was that movie I watched? It was, oh yeah, that thing that was just okay. And I think that's what
Yeah.
this movie is. It's fine. It's not very good though. like I what are some of your initial thoughts?
Um, yeah. So I'm sure we're gonna reiterate a lot of the things we have said about the MCU's current state throughout this episode. I think we did a good job at keeping that to a relative minimum, though. We've talked about it all before. I'd recommend checking out our Ant-Man 3 episode for
hmm
a lot of that. I actually think that's a really strong episode of ours, but we talk about why this franchise is not what it once was. Um,
hmm
and I will say, though, going into this movie, based on what I heard over opening weekend, because we saw this the Monday after it released a
Yeah.
week ago today, as we're recording it, I was expecting to hate this a lot more than I did. I was expecting abysmal dog shit, and I don't think this is that. That said, I don't think it's good. The way I would
yeah.
describe the movie is that it is forgettably bad. Um,
Mm.
Yeah, I like Anthony Mackie as Captain America.
Yep.
I've liked Sam Wilson since he was introduced in The Winter Soldier, I believe. And
Mm-hmm.
I hope Marvel does not take the wrong lesson from this and think this movie's uh, low critical reception or the box office not being great is a result of it being Sam Wilson, Captain America, and then them like revert back to Steve. I think that would be a really gross lesson to learn. One, and two, it would be a disservice to their storytelling. But
Mm-hmm.
back to you for a second.
Yeah. No, I agree though. I think that Anthony Mackie, he's like one of the stronger parts of this movie, and we did a whole episode on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so I
Mm-hmm.
encourage people to go check that out. That's a fun discussion just on that series as a whole, and I liked that series. Again, not the best thing the MCU's ever put out, but it had some good strong moments, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that Anthony Mackie's really good. He carries that through here, and I think that Harrison Ford and Danny Ramirez, um, they're all pretty good in this movie.
Yep.
Very good actors here, but unfortunately, I think that the rest of the actors, the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
people in this movie, to me, they just came across as very wooden,
Okay.
stiff. I think that was because a lot of this movie is a lot of exposition.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think we'll talk about it more when we get into spoilers, but I think that there's just it's a little bit more on the way it was written, I think. And I'm just kind of shooting in the dark here, but when you were just
Mm-hmm.
listing off all the people who were writers on this movie, there were five
Five.
writers.
Yeah.
that's
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy. That's so many heads in the room talking about this movie. That's so many different people. Like that
Mm-hmm.
could be a good thing. Maybe in this case was a little bit of a bad thing. Uh,
Yeah, it's like it could be good or bad, but if a movie is weak and you then see that the list of writers is that long, usually there's something connecting those two details together. There's
mm-hmm.
a lack of cohesion, maybe a lack of vision in in a structure like that. I will say another performance I liked was Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley. He
Yeah.
returns in this. He was in the show as well. I like that character a lot in general too. I think he's a very interesting character, and we talk about it more. But his relationship with Sam in this, I think, is a bright spot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
I
I will
agree.
say about Falcon and Winter Soldier as well. Like that, I do think is stronger than this. And if I remember correctly, we both reviewed that show positively.
Yes.
think I think maybe our reactions being so different is also indicative of like where the MCU was at each point in time here, right? We are I'd say at a bit of a franchise low point right now. Things are kind of scattered and not going in any promising direction overall. We had
Mm-hmm.
high hopes for a new Captain America to be a strong, like, foundational piece for the storytelling going forward,
Yeah.
and this isn't that. And then with Falcon and Winter Soldier back then, that was, I believe, the second Disney Plus show they did. So it was kind of well, we're post Endgame and they're taking some more risks in format. WandaVision was really, really good and really
Mm-hmm.
interesting, and it leaned into the TV showness of it. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier was less interesting than WandaVision, but it was still strong, and we got to see characters we liked
Yes.
on an adventure that was more suited for TV. So it was like, oh, a promising new frontier for this franchise. And in short, that frontier has not panned out. Great.
Yeah, yeah. Or there's just like too many frontiers. There's too many directions. Like they can't really pick a lane. And I like them being able to kind of take some risks and stretch their creative legs. But
Mm-hmm.
then you have movies like this that are kind of formulaic and not exactly what you want.
Yeah. I will say Harrison Ford as President Ross, easily the best part of the film. Ford is doing really great work
Yeah.
here, performance wise, and he brings a lot of humanity to this character who's been like a complete shithead for the entirety of his character run. And the Ford portrayal kind of pushes him in a bit of a different direction than the earlier William Hurt portrayals did, which I think
Yeah.
was really fun to watch. But ultimately, like, this is nothing to write home about, this movie.
Yeah.
And if you were looking for an MCU entry to, like, if you were sort of a fan who had fallen off the franchise and was looking like, oh, maybe this is the one to get back in, I don't think this is going to pull you back in. That's kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah. I'm in a very similar boat there. Like, one other thing too that we'll talk about more in spoilers is that I feel like also just the antagonist in this movie just feels underdeveloped, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. There's just like a lot of things that could have been improved in this movie. Like, there's a long list, and so I can't really recommend this movie. You know, it's like I don't think it's the worst thing that the MCU's ever done, but it's nothing to celebrate. And yeah, like you said, this isn't like when you compare the other Captain America movies. It's like
Mm-hmm.
this is the lowest one.
Yeah,
You know,
which like which maybe isn't even fair too, because like
exactly. Yeah.
the Captain America trilogy, I don't think any of the MCU subseries are truly trilogies, but that's a side note. Those were some of the strongest in the first decade of Marvel. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Consistently good across the board, and very unique from each other as well. But
Yes.
I think I think the bigger, I forget, I'm sure we talked about it on the show, but the biggest change for me that's happened in the MCU in since Endgame happened is back in the day, Marvel always had some stinkers, right? There were some movies here and there that were just not very good, and I
Mm-hmm.
would say there were probably some that were worse than this. There definitely are now some that are worse than this, but the thing was, Marvel, the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a structure was very much like a TV show, and each season finale was the Avengers team up movie. And
Yes.
anyone who's grown up watching TV, especially like network TV or like those longer shows, like every show has bad episodes,
Yeah.
but the show overall is good. And
Mm-hmm.
you have that overarching story keeping you interested throughout. And then every now and then an episode doesn't really click with you, and it's fine because you'll be back next week. And the
Yeah.
MCU used to be greater than the sum of its parts.
Mm-hmm.
Post Endgame, there is great stuff still coming out. I think Doctor Strange 2 was great. WandaVision
Yes.
was great. I liked the Marvels a lot.
Yeah.
Miss Marvel I liked as well. Moon Knight, I've liked a lot of it. Loki, but
Yes.
the thing is, the MCU is lesser than the sum of its parts now. It doesn't feel like it's going anywhere, or it's going in 1,000 different directions that will not coalesce into something satisfying. And so now when you have a weaker entry, it hurts more because it's like, oh, this is just another chapter that's really not doing
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're totally right there, and it's feels meandering right now. We don't have a lot of direction.
Mm-hmm.
To play as devil's advocate, there were some movies in those first like decade where it was like, yeah, where are we going here? But you did so I think that there were some meandering points, but yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
There was always kind of this drive towards like, okay, the next Avengers movie,
Yeah,
Thanos as well. Like
right.
everything was kind of culminating, and then here they're just been like, first they were building to Kang, and then it's like, wait, we need to drop that actor because he's actually a really big piece of shit. So
Yeah,
let's
because
just cancel
they
Kang.
refuse to recast too.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like, but with Kang also, and we're diverging into our Ant-Man conversation here, but it's like the problems with Kang presented themselves before the problems with Jonathan Majors had
sure.
surfaced, because they introduced him as their next Thanos, and then they killed him, and then they
Yep.
introduced him again, and they killed him again, and then
Yeah.
they introduced him again, and they killed him again. It's like, okay, you're guys, you're really diminishing the threat of this villain by killing him
Hmm.
every time he shows up. And
Yeah.
but the it's the loss of structure, I think, because it used to just be
Yes.
solo movie, solo movie, solo movie, team up movie, solo movie, solo movie, solo movie, team up movie, and we haven't had a team up movie in 6 years.
It's been a while, yeah.
We've had like 15 entries in the franchise without a team up
Yeah.
movie.
But
That's
at least we got a small one coming up with Thunderbolts. That's that is a team up. So
yes, and it's one of the ones I'm most looking forward to. But should we jump into spoilers, you want to do a plot recap for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Captain America: Brave New World. Let's get into it. So, in case you forgot what happened, so America is negotiating a peace treaty slash agreement thing with all the nations of the world to have equal
Mm-hmm.
access to the celestial body in the
Mm-hmm.
Indian Ocean, which emerged during the Eternals. So I'm really happy that we're finally addressing
Yeah.
the
For
million-ton
everyone,
elephant.
yeah, for everyone who was complaining about that not being mentioned, here you go. It's
Here you go. It's a central part of the plot, and guess what? It's made out of adamantium, so that's how they're introducing that, and that's
mm-hmm.
fine. I'm on board with that. Um, However, there's a coordinated assassination attempt on President Ross, and Sam Wilson investigates. Um,
Yes.
as the movie goes on, we learn that Ross has been keeping Samuel Stearns in prison and pumping him full of gamma radiation to
Mm-hmm.
like make his brain even bigger and whatever. And then he's just kind of manipulating, using him as a tool to help Ross himself become the president of the United States. Like he's
Yes.
just kind of having him do all these things in the background for him.
And
Um,
Niles, who is Samuel Stearns?
that's a really good question.
he he was in The Incredible Hulk, played by Tim Blake Nelson in that movie as well. But
Wow.
the problem with this is The Incredible Hulk came out in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Samuel Stearns has not been mentioned at all
Nope.
since 2008. Most viewers of the MCU have not seen The Incredible Hulk since probably 2010, 2011 at the latest.
Yeah.
When I saw it was 2010. It's not a very well liked movie in the MCU, and some don't even know it's in the MCU because Hulk was recast before the next
Mm-hmm.
movie appeared. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. So you need to have some encyclopedic knowledge to remember this guy, but he's in there. Um, and he's just been used as a tool by Ross. But Stearns
mm-hmm.
has also been helping out Ross with his heart and giving him pills to help him out with his condition, whatever it is. But he's been infusing gamma radiation into those heart pills, which then causes Ross
Uh-oh.
to become the Red Hulk at the White House, and chaos ensues there. There's lots of action and flips and tricks and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the movie.
Okay, so the Samuel Stearns reappearing after a decade and a half,
Yeah.
plays into what I'm going to talk about now because this was some drama unfolding on the timeline
Ooh.
today. So, Hideo Kojima, acclaimed Japanese video game designer, who created Metal Gear Solid, Death Stranding, amongst many other things. So he has when he loves movies, big movie guy, and usually when he will tweet when he's watching a movie,
Yeah.
like after he watches it, if he likes it, he gives a really long like rundown of everything he appreciated about the movie and the artistry of it. If he doesn't like a
Cool.
movie, he just says like, "Watched this," and that's it. So he did something in between for this one, and he did like, admittedly, I would say in Avengers Endgame when Steve gives Sam the shield, I understand Sam is becoming Captain America in this moment.
Yes.
That was a criticism people had of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They're like, we don't need this. Just let him be Captain America. So I guess Kojima kind of forgot the details of that, and his tweet was like, I vaguely remember him getting the shield, but I didn't know he was like fully Captain America. I guess there was like a show I could have watched. I didn't know all these details or whatever. It's like, okay, man, come on. Like, read between the lines a little bit. But then a bunch of MCU stans on Twitter started mocking the concept of people like surprised that you have to watch every entry to keep up with what's going on. It's like, wow, if you skip a whole show, you might not have the full context for the next movie. And it's like, are you even a fan at that point? And it's like, no, because yes, the fans are going to keep up with everything, right? We have kept up with everything. We've talked about most of it on this show.
Yes.
And additionally to that, like most of what you need to know to enjoy this movie or at least understand it is explained within the runtime of this. Like you figure out who Isaiah Bradley is, you figure out who Joaquin Torres is. You don't have the emotional connection to them really because that happens in the show. And to me, that's one thing that a lot of these fans get wrong is that yeah, you might understand who all these people are in relation to each other, but the more important thing is that you feel who they are to each other, and you don't get that unless you watch that show.
Right.
Here's the point I want to make to fans of this and any franchise. The MCU did not become a pop culture juggernaut off the backs of us, the fans. It became huge because it got to a point where viewers like my mother wanted to know what was next for characters as niche as the Vision and the Winter Soldier. She knew the Winter Soldier's name was Bucky Barnes. She doesn't give a shit about comic books, and she knew that. And that's the general audience. That's why that series has gotten so huge. And as we've said before on this show, I'm sure, the general audience is not keeping up with 3 to 4 movies a year in addition to 3 to 4 seasons of TV a year on a streaming service that they may or may not have, depending on if they have kids, probably. When I go to someone like my mom or another casual viewer and I tell them that The Marvels, a movie I really liked, I think it's one of the better recent ones. I tell them that movie, it's a team up between Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, a side character from WandaVision, who you also may remember was a little kid in the first Captain Marvel movie. I don't remember that because that movie was like 4 years ago. And then Kamala Khan from Miss Marvel, they're not going to go watch that movie because they're like, well, I didn't watch the shows, so I don't know if I'll be able to see. It's like, no, you'll understand. You'll be fine. It's like, yeah, but, I don't know. And skip it. And then when you skip one, that's the problem with this interconnected cinematic universe franchise thing is that when you have viewers start missing one, they're like, well, I'm going to have to catch up. And it's like, maybe next time. And then they don't catch up. And then it's a house of cards and it comes crumbling down. And that is the state where we are now. Because outside of the people we saw this movie with, I don't think any of our real life friends have seen this.
I really haven't talked to anybody in person about this movie except for you and me and the other people we've seen it with. And
and we used to go in groups of like 8 to 12 people to see these movies together on opening night day. Like that's changed.
Exactly. Well, I mean, like back in the day, it was a little bit more accessible and not as, just like you're saying, it's like the old days of like, network television where it's like, if you missed an episode of MASH, it's not going to be a huge deal. But if you miss a few of them, it's going to be a big deal because things are going to change. Or like in Friends, if you miss a few episodes of Friends, you're going to be behind and then everyone's going to be talking about it and you're just going to feel so behind in the lurch and everything like that. And that's kind of exactly what's happening here is it's like, if there's all this extra shit I need to watch, like, do I want to watch that? Like, is that worth my time?
Yeah. Or like comparing it to something more serialized, like in the heyday of Game of Thrones, right? It's like, if you were 2 or 3 episodes behind on the latest season, it's not that much work to catch up and be back in sync with everybody. If you missed 3 seasons of Game of Thrones, that's a tougher ask to catch up on, and a lot of people just won't do it. And also there's as more and more people have fallen off, the like the monoculture element of it has fallen off. Like, go see the movie if all your friends were going to see the movie, right? But now, and some of that's out of Marvel's control. Like there was the pandemic, a lot of their projects got pushed back a couple years. They named this is on them. They named a movie Endgame that was sort of a finale for characters. And I think most people were like, all right, well, that was cool. Bye.
All right, on to the next franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, you're totally right. And it's just not as big of like a cultural moment to go see these anymore. It's like maybe that'll change when the other big ones come out.
Mm-hmm.
like the next big team up movies, it'll be like, okay, yeah, let's get a few people together. But like, I will say that me personally, I like the fact that the MCU is kind of splintering in a way where like you
Mm-hmm.
can have these niche little shows like or that some people will really love, like
Mm-hmm.
the new Daredevil movie or Daredevil series. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of fans that are just gonna love that, but I'm probably
Yeah.
not gonna watch
Did
it.
you watch the Netflix show?
No, I didn't. But I
Okay.
know
Yeah.
that it's really good. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably get around to it someday. But like even like She-Hulk, like I didn't finish She-Hulk, but I was mostly positive on it overall. But I'm like,
Yeah.
this just isn't for me entirely. But there's some people
Right.
who are gonna love this, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like what I like right now is that it started to kind of take some of those risks that we were talking about doing Miss Marvel. It's like that's not for everybody. That's for like a very specific kind of audience. But like,
Mm-hmm.
so I enjoy that they're kind of in that mode now where they can specialize a little bit more and it doesn't have to be so like broad. But
I agree in theory.
yes.
I like the idea of what you're saying. The problem is they haven't adjusted their budgets to align
Yeah.
with. You can't
Yeah.
make a more niche product at a blockbuster budget. Um, and obviously that's tougher to do with something like She-Hulk, where the character is a special effect. But
Hmm.
but it's like if they're gonna go in that route where you don't need to watch everything, it's not really all interconnected anymore, which seems to be what James Gunn is doing with DC, and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Um, you have to have appropriate budgets, or else you're gonna run yourself out of business.
Yeah. That's very true.
Or sorry, they're not gonna run Disney out of business. Disney is gonna pull the plug. Is what's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
And then the MCU will just crumble until someone else buys it.
Yes. Okay. Speaking of inflated budgets and things getting out of control, though, reshoots. We are still unsure about the scale of this movie's reshoots. Many stories have been written over the last year or two about how this movie kept going back and back and back for reshoots after
Yeah.
reshoots, and that is in dispute. I will say too, reshoots are very common in both this franchise and the blockbuster industry more generally, even factored into the schedule ahead of time, so actors do not get booked for other projects when they have to come back for reshoots. So reshoots alone, not weird, not a red flag. But like if the scale of reshoots is true,
Yeah.
then that might be why this movie feels the way it does. But the director also said that the claimed amount of reshoots is wildly inaccurate and over exaggerated. So there is that element too that we have to. It's so annoying that we have to keep track of this type of rhetoric, but it's like there are people who don't like the idea of a black man playing Captain America or the more female-led projects, and they are manipulative about the rhetoric leading up to them, hoping that they'll fail, so they all go back to just being white dudes again. I don't know to what degree that played into this or
Yeah.
not,
Sure.
but that's always there.
Hmm.
It's really fucking annoying. But apparently, Giancarlo Esposito's character existed only within the scope of the reshoots, which is probably why he's so loosely tied to everything else.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because yeah, that's one of the things I liked his character, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
he feels underutilized in this plot, and that makes a lot more sense if he was part of the reshoots. And I don't know. Yeah, there were definitely some scenes where, like, I think the post-credit scene, especially, I'm just like, this doesn't. This feels like a reshoot. This feels like they
Yeah.
just slapped this part together and
Mm-hmm.
just hoped it would work. Like,
Yeah.
it's not apparent in every scene, but like, I think there are certain points where you're like, that was a reshoot.
Yeah. Honestly, the post-credit scenes are kind of where you can really pinpoint how much Marvel has spiraled out of scope and control of itself, because they used to just be like with TV again. They used to be like next time on Marvel, and
Yeah.
then it was like a teaser for what was coming next, and now it's just like a parade of broken promises. you know,
Yeah, you're
like
so right.
like Shang-Chi meets a bunch of Avengers. Cool, he's gonna team up with them. Maybe.
When did that happen? Yeah, like,
Kamala Khan recruits Kate Bishop to join a team. Ever gonna see them again? I don't know. Moon Knight reveals a new personality who shoots Ethan Hawke's character or someone, whatever. We're never gonna see them again. Charlize Theron shows up to go on an adventure with Doctor Strange.
Yeah. And then in this one, it's like, oh, you have no idea the risks that are coming. Like, you stopped me here, but you have no idea what's coming next. And it's like, are you still trying to go in the multiverse angle? Is
They
that
are,
where
because they're doing
you're going
Secret
with this?
Wars. They're doing
Yeah, it's
fucking
like,
Secret Wars.
it's just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
They're all so disconnected.
Yes. A quick positive before we'll go to the most miserable part of the episode. But the thing I liked the opening. I liked Ross winning the election.
Yes.
I liked that sequence. And I liked how like Sam has just sort of sunk into his role a little bit as Captain America. People are giving him free beer at the bar. Everybody's like giving him fist bumps and like tapping him on the shoulder because I like that as a signal to the audience too. It's like, get on board. This is Captain America. Everyone else has accepted him. You should too.
Yeah.
That was good. You know, it was a fun opening.
I'd agree too. Yeah, I think the movie opened pretty strong, and like yeah, when Ross is about to go on stage, he's checking his phone. It's like, okay, you're already setting that layer in there of like he's got this fraught relationship with his daughter.
Yep.
Like, okay, that's a good way to start it off.
He's taking the pills. It's seeding that element of the story too.
It's all there.
Yeah, and you have I think it was in Civil War where he talks about how he had a heart attack on the golf course or something. So it's like you have this introduced element from the earlier in the franchise about his health problems, and you see him taking these pills. And we'll talk about more what the pills do later on because I know you have a whole segment on that. But okay, let's shift gears to the not fun shit right now. We're gonna talk about the Ruth Sabra character here. Controversial element of the film. Obviously, the character is based on an Israel secret agent superhero from the comic books. They were at least wise enough to change her from an Israeli Secret Service agent into just being a Black Widow and minimizing the on-screen connection to Israel. If you didn't know, in our audience, Israel is currently committing genocide and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in both Gaza and the West Bank. There was supposed to be a ceasefire. They violated it almost every single fucking day. They're currently ripping up the roads in the West Bank for no fucking reason and sending tanks around in the West Bank. That's all of that is to say, like, it just this character being from Israel, played by an Israeli actress who served in the IDF, it takes me out of the movie. That's just how it's going to be going forward. Anytime shit comes up, I'm going to be pulled out immediately. I know too much.
Yes. It's
too much. And I'm not going to speculate on the current politics of the actress. She grew up in Israel. She volunteered to do like theater in the IDF when she didn't have to. And she like one of the names who wrote that fucking letter to Biden about the hostages at the start. But like fucking everybody in Hollywood wrote that letter. And a lot of them, like Eric Andre, have since become like massive pro-Palestinian voices since then. Like people just signed that shit not knowing what it was. I have no idea if she's like a good person, a bad person, what her politics are. That's not what this is. One thing to clear up about this character and her relationship to real world events. There has been a lot of misinformation from our side of this issue in the political aisle saying that Sabra was named after the Sabra and Shatila massacre in Lebanon, which is not true. The character was made 2 years before that massacre, and I looked this up. I don't know a ton about this event, but basically it was a massacre where between 1,800 and 3,500 civilians, mostly Palestinian, were killed by a coalition of Lebanese forces, Christian militias, and the IDF during an Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982. The UN did deem the IDF responsible for the slaughter because it was their invasion and they were responsible for that coalition at the time. That's the history of that. Just wanted to clear that up. It's
okay.
Just don't fucking. I don't know. I'm yeah, whatever.
I
But
Yeah, I wasn't even really aware of all of that, so I
yeah,
appreciate you doing the research and
yeah,
talking about it.
I went to Wikipedia. I didn't do all that much research on this, but I have done a lot of research on Israel Palestine stuff over the last 3.5 years. My perspective on this is very much researched, and I think I'm well informed on it. And it bugs me.
Mm-hmm.
Variety of reasons, genocide, bad. But
Yeah,
the role also felt like it would have belonged to Sharon Carter here. Had they
yeah,
made her like a weird pseudo villain in the last appearance, and it would have been a whole lot less controversial if they just used that character instead.
yeah. Well, and I mean, she's just so closely tied with the past three Captain America films,
hmm
and or at least the past two, and then
Yeah.
she was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier for a good portion of that series as well. So
hmm
it's like, yeah, why not work her into this story, especially if she's like got this pseudo villain thing going on. Maybe they got bigger
Yeah.
plans for her, but it's like, yeah, that's an obvious kind of win right there. I don't know why they didn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and it would have killed two birds with one stone too, because it's like, oh, this is another one of your like post-credit broken promises where you set this character up to do something, and then we haven't seen her in years.
Yeah, right. Well, and
I
like,
sent y'all that joke where it's like, do not buy Sharon Carter on Timu or something.
and then here she is. And I mean, I'll say that like I like the idea of having a Black Widow character in the White
hmm
House. Like her being there, that's kind of cool. Like
Yeah.
already having that experience, and we already know about the Black Widows, how deadly they
hmm
are, and how just intelligent they are too. It's like that would
Yeah.
be that's kind of a logical choice to get into your cabinet if you can, and you can trust them too. But yeah, there's something about this character that I couldn't get behind, and I think first it was just the line delivery.
hmm
I don't think they did a very good job. It just felt a little stiff. That could have been the writing.
Yeah.
Um, but also, um, there is this sequence where she is fighting,
hmm
and I swear to God, she looks like she is 4 foot 10 inches tall. Like she looks so short in this movie, so fragile to me that it just is kind of unbelievable to me that she can like do all this combat shit, rolling around, like taking the punches and stuff. I'm like, I don't really buy that.
Your discrimination against smaller people has been noted. It will be recorded for your future trials. Um,
Shit, I shouldn't have said that.
no, but it's like it is interesting though because there have been like it's not that it's a female character, obviously. Plenty of
No,
those
absolutely not. Yeah,
very believable action scenes, and it's not even that she's small. I don't think because there are little characters who have like had badass fight scenes too. Maybe it's just the way it's shot or framed that doesn't work.
that
Um,
must be it. Yeah, because you're totally right. Like someone like Rocket is a badass. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
how you present him fighting.
right. Like Rocket's a badass, and both like neither Natasha or Yelena are like huge people necessarily. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like their fight scenes are all, I mean, as believable as any fight scenes in these movies are. They're like over the top,
Yeah,
right?
big
but
asterisk.
yeah. But I mean, but that like specific element of the politics of this film, I think not the shortness of it, the Israel shit, but that
Yes.
dovetails into the more broad and general aspect of politics in this film, more specifically the lack thereof. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember when we reviewed Falcon and Winter Soldier, at the end, you remember Captain America gives a big speech to the politicians, and he's basically like, look, I don't have all the answers. I'm just a guy and a superhero. That's your job to have the answers. And like on a
Mm-hmm.
meta level, it is kind of like Kevin Feige in the Marvel universe saying, like, I don't know what to do. I don't have the answers for you. Find them elsewhere. And I distinctly remember, maybe it was just because we were a bit younger, but I was like, I think that's fine. It's okay. Um, because I think, and I still believe on some level, maybe it's not the Marvel Cinematic Universe's place to guide our political compass. That's
Yes.
that's an agreeable position. However, maybe because I've grown a little, but also it just seems in movies like this especially that they want to have their cake and eat it too, because you have some Marvel fans who will say this about it's most accurate with the Winter Soldier, I'll say, and I'll get to that in a second. But you have people who say like, oh, it's like a take on a political thriller.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that in a way careful to not actually say anything political so as not to offend anyone. And the thing about political thrillers is they involve politics, and they might have something to say. Maybe they should have something to say.
Yes.
They're going to be about politics and the thrilling nature of political intrigue. And I give the Winter Soldier a bit more credit for this, even though it doesn't do that much with it. But at least in the Winter Soldier, Captain America discovers, oh no, there are a bunch of Nazis in the government. And I'm going to go against the government and dismantle this organization that was infiltrated by Nazis. And the reason I give it more credit for that is because, one, yay, criticism of Nazis. That's good. Always criticize them. They're bad. They're currently cooing our fucking government right now. Also, the American government introduced a whole lot of Nazis into our government in the aftermath of World War II. This is a real historical event called Operation Paperclip. Zola, from the first Captain America movie, was a Nazi scientist, and the Winter Soldier highlights how the American government brought him over to do science shit with them. And he was part of how Hydra managed to survive. And it's like, oh, that actually highlights a real bit of American history that a lot of people just kind of look over because it's really fucking inconvenient for us that we did that.
Or we just focus on, we just took the scientists for the atom bomb.
Yeah.
That was it. We didn't do anything else that was bad or sketchy.
Yeah. Yet the scientists definitely weren't involved in the fucking Holocaust. Not at all.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but like to this movie though, the president of the United States is a major character, and his only political campaign message we see is together. And we don't even know what party he belongs to.
The Together Party. We're just together. Everyone together.
Like, it's in the context of what the MCU has been through. Campaigning on together is fair, but it is also, in a real world sense, like the most nothing thing they can say so that no one could assign their own political ideology onto him or assign their political enemy's ideology onto him. It's so funny.
It's really just lacking kind of any political message. Like, you'd expect a movie with the title of Brave New World to have like something to say about the politics, or even just like eugenics or something like that. Go back to what the name comes from, which is a book by Aldous Huxley. Like what was that book about? Let's think about why we're using that book's title as part of our title. Is there some kind of thing that we could do there?
I know part of the reason they use this title as a title. You know what the original title was and why they changed it?
Oh, what was it?
It was New World Order, and they changed it because the idea of a New World Order is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, and they already had announced that Tim Blake Nelson was going to be the main villain of the movie, and he is a fucking Jewish actor.
Yeah, good call changing the name.
Yeah, but it's like that stepping on rakes meme, I guess, a little bit, where it's just...
You step on one, you land on another, and the cycle repeats. You're just Sideshow Bob going in a circle.
But I will say, look, we are never told what President Ross's political party is, but He has a long career of being a complete dickhead, and supports restrictive legislation and is ex-military. He's a Republican. We know, but
Yes, yeah. There's definitely that in there, but at least he's not the president anymore by the end of it. But yeah, the you going back to the political commentary though, it's like I feel like the way that this movie was marketed and in the
Mhm.
trailers and everything, it was going to be kind of like a Captain America versus like U.S. government kind of dynamic again,
Mhm.
just the way it was kind of marketed. And I was expecting something to be like a full like a commentary on like America, the world police motif, like we're always there
Yeah.
to like lead or be the police of the world. And like, in this movie Ross even wants Sam Wilson to reform the Avengers, but then it's
Mhm.
also like in that case I feel like that they would just be loyal to the US, like they wouldn't necessarily be like the world's Avengers. So like if something bad happens in like another country, it's like, are the US Avengers gonna do anything about it to
Yeah.
avenge them? Like it feels like there could have been this movie had like ripe ground for like some good political commentary on that,
Mhm. Yeah.
um but just didn't swing.
Yeah. Well, and like Sam expresses concern about that too, right? Because we'd be answering to him, not ourselves, because of the
Mm-hmm.
Sokovia Accords from the Civil War movie, where like, oh, they have to answer to the governments of the world now, was what that said. But what you bring up also plays into this is something about American film more generally, but the MCU movies are very guilty of this as well. It's just the general portrayal of the military. Um, through a very, very uncritical lens. this
Yes. Yes.
this one I felt more than any of the Captain America movies was very guilty of this. Um,
Yes.
but I and this is more for the benefit of any international listeners we have who may not know this about American culture, and why our media just portrays the military the way it does. A very large of Americans view the American military without question as a force for universal and genuine good across the world. There is no examination for why our military is stationed all over the world, what we're doing at any given time, who we're fighting, where,
Mm-hmm.
or why. People revere veterans as like gods. Like they will just salute them in the street. They will get discounted meals. And I'm not even trying to disrespect people who serve in the armed services.
Yeah.
It, like that's fine. It's a job, and if you feel like you want to serve your country, yes, that's admirable. But it is that attitude towards them that I just described. That is not a normal relationship to military in on Earth. Like I'm not even trying to be
Mm.
like, propagandistic with this. It's just not the norm across the world because it is ultimately just a job. It's a
Yeah.
dangerous job sometimes, but for international listeners, that's why our media portrays our military that way because
Mm.
it's very comfortable to the middle America demographic because that's just what they think it's like.
Yeah. And they'll just eat that up. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Yeah. But back to the movie itself. I thought, I don't know if you agree, but the climax of this film was structured very strangely. So
Yeah, I would agree. It is a little odd.
yeah,
Um,
so we like everything is culminating. There's this whole like treaty with the Celestial. They everybody like Ross wants everybody to share the adamantium and like mine it together or something. And it's like the treaty is on the edge of a knife because it was already tense, and then now it looks like America stole Japan's adamantium because the leader used the CIA to do it or whatever. It doesn't matter. But everything culminates in this standoff outside the Celestial between the American Navy and the Japanese Navy, and then Captain America and Falcon, they have to go and stop it. Everything's like this is like, okay, this is our big action climax. There's a big battle set piece. There's a cool backdrop. Ross is getting really, really stressed, and he looks like he's going to turn into the Hulk. Maybe he's going to turn into the Hulk, and it's like it builds and builds and builds, and then they resolve the issue, and
mhm.
then that's it. And then the movie keeps going after that.
Yeah.
And then it has a different climax with the red when Ross becomes the Red Hulk in at the White House.
Yeah, I think that they just wanted those shots of just like the Hulk at the White House,
Hmm.
just the general atmosphere of it is like infinitely cooler than Ross on going Hulk on like a on the US Navy ship, I think. But yeah,
Yes, it is.
it is jarring because yeah, there's this little weird lull between the sea showdown and the Red Hulk fight, and there are some things that happen there, like we get to see Bucky and some other things which we'll get to. But yeah, it is kind of this odd climactic structure to the film.
Yeah, and it's like I like the idea that Joaquin gets hurt and Sam feels responsible for this, and
Yeah.
then there's that quiet moment with that. But it's just it just felt really weird that we built to this big showdown, and it was a cool sequence. I mean, cool
Mm-hmm.
enough. Um, I also feel like we are not using the coolness of the celestial in the ocean to its full potential yet. Um, there's a massive dude sticking out of the ocean, and it's kind of in the background of this fight scene. It's
Yeah.
there, and it's the introduction of adamantium to the MCU, I guess. But like I need like it's not a want for me. It's a need that they make this into a supervillain lair, like where the
Yes.
villains live. It's made of metal. Maybe Magneto can hang out there and he like molds the inside into be this big
Yes.
city for the Brotherhood of Mutants or whatever he's a part of at that time. Like, do something cool with it. Like, put a fucking like space vampire in its head or something like that. Like the other celestial head we've seen is nowhere in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies,
And
and
it's
that
so cool. It's
like
such a
do
cool.
something with this one.
Yeah, there's so much that they could do. They could just got to get it going, get
Hmm.
someone in there to build that shit up. Because yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree. That would be like such a cool little base of operations for villains or heroes, one of the two.
Hmm. Yeah.
Can I get on my soapbox for a second?
Yes. I got on mine. You can get on yours.
Yeah. Um, this is my common soapbox, and I want to talk for a second about trailers and marketing, because I feel like that this is harming the industry in a way. Well,
Oh,
maybe not
and
the
also
industry
we
as a
should say,
whole.
you're saying this as someone, because we both do. We both work in marketing. We
Yes,
understand its purpose and its value. The soap
yes,
it's despite that.
yes, exactly. Marketing is supposed to pull you in, or like just like entice you enough to get you to click, to get you
Hmm.
to buy, to get you to go. It doesn't need to spoil everything. And to me, I feel like this movie, it just kind of lacked surprise and suspense.
Hmm.
Like the whole movie, it's kind of building to this moment. It's dropping those little seeds. Oh, he's taking the pills. He's taking the pills. Look at him. He's getting stressed out. He's getting really mad. He might become the Hulk right here. And then it happens in front of the White House. But like
Hmm.
the way that the movie's structured and paced, it makes this feel like a building suspenseful kind of surprise. But it's not. You know,
Yeah.
we already know what's gonna happen. Like I so I have an idea about this because it was just revealed in the trailer. Like this was like all smeared across the marketing. It's just like Captain
Hmm.
America fights the Red Hulk.
Yeah.
That's what this movie is. You need to go check it out. So my idea is, it's very hypothetical. What if the transition of Ross to Red Hulk was a complete surprise? Like it wasn't
Hmm.
marketed in the trailers or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like to me, I think that would have been pretty powerful in the moment if we
Hmm.
could have seen that. Like the movie itself would have had to go undergo some drastic rewrites, I think, and the marketing would have had to been completely different. And
Hmm.
there's always the risk of like leaks, of just like something getting spoiled. Like you spend all this time trying to keep the Red Hulk under wraps, and then it comes out somehow, spoils a surprise. Would have been
Yeah.
disappointing either way. But like I don't know. To me, I think that would have been pretty powerful if that could have happened.
Yeah. But and it's like it's interesting too because Thaddeus Ross is the Red Hulk in the comic books as well. Like that's a known thing of his character, but he's
Mm-hmm.
also been in these movies for the entire run of the MCU and has never become the Red Hulk. So
Yeah.
even if and every time he shows up, a lot of people are like, I wonder if he's going to become the Red Hulk in this one. Like, when is he going to become the Red Hulk? You could have at least leaned into that. And then the pills and him getting more stressed out, it's like, oh my God, it might happen. It might finally happen. And then it does. But I agree with you entirely, because it's like, it's the posters, it's the interviews, it's the trailer.
It's everything.
And ultimately, like, I kind of thought turning into the Red Hulk was the least interesting part about Ross in this movie. Him trying to, like, turn over a new leaf and be better, like, genuinely trying to do that, was way more compelling. Maybe just because Harrison Ford was doing it so well, but finally turned into the Red Hulk. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll find.
I know, yeah. I'm like, I knew this was happening. Like, this was coming. Like, this isn't a big reveal. And, like, you know, all the actors in the scene, they're screaming, they're going crazy. They're like, oh my God, this is insane. I'm like, I feel none of that, because I knew this was happening.
Saw it. Yeah, but the movie, because the movie treats it like a big reveal, like it's the slow build, and then on the ship he's gripping the bars and his eyes turn red, and it's like, okay, but we know.
Yeah, we know, and I mean, ultimately, yeah, I think it probably would have been impossible to hide this, especially like, a lot of fans knew that this was coming. Like, he's this character in the comics. We already know that this is coming. Like, this is, you know, more or less common knowledge among the fan base, I would say. I think it just would have elevated my viewing experience a little bit if they could have found a way to do that. Because, like, I kind of talked about this in our episode last week about Companion, which is a great episode. I definitely recommend checking out that movie and our episode on it. But I feel like, to close out my soapbox, I feel like most modern trailers these days and most modern marketing for movies just reveal the twist. They reveal whatever big things coming in this movie in the marketing materials. And I feel like that just kind of takes the power out of the punch. Like, there's other ways to market a film rather than just saying, oh, he's the killer. Like, oh no, it's that the companion's actually a robot. Like, come see this movie. You know, like, there's ways you can still entice people enough to come check out this movie.
Yeah, I wonder. I want to look back at the trajectory of the marketing campaign for this movie, because I don't know if Red Hulk was part of it at the very beginning.
Yeah, I don't think he was.
And it could have been that, like, the buzz around the movie was so meh to negative that it was like a pull the ripcord thing.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Maybe they saw, like, ticket pre-sales and were like, oh no.
We need to do something fast.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, how many trailers had come out before it was revealed that Ross was going to be the Red Hulk in this. How many posters had come out and all that, but I don't know.
Sure.
I agree with your point, though.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I know, yeah. It would have been nice to just have that as a surprise coming, but whatever. You want to talk about our villain for a second?
Yes, sure.
Samuel Stearns. We kind of already talked about him really briefly, but this character is just honestly the weakest part of the movie for me. He's just he feels underutilized, underdeveloped. Everything that we learn about him is through exposition. Like, it's never really like flashbacks or like any kind of like thing to make him sympathetic or anything like that. One of my biggest gripes with him is just like, assuming this gamma radiation is making him smarter, which it is. I was expecting more twists and turns with his plan. I was expecting something dramatic and puzzling, like in previous Captain America movies. Like, I think of Baron Zemo, you know, like, it felt like in Civil War, he was always like 2-3 steps ahead of Captain America and the rest of the Avengers. That's the kind of like intellect I'm expecting from a guy like this. And he just, as a character, just really didn't deliver on that. Like, he fucks up one calculation and then he's like, well, I got to turn myself in now to pull the final chord. It's like, what? I don't understand why that has to be your your final play. Like, this is so
and
weird.
also like isn't part of why you hated Ross so much because he promised to like let you out when he became president and he didn't. He kept you locked up, and now you're just turn yourself in again.
It's confusing. And yeah, like I said, the only context that we get about Stearns, his history, his background, is just like through exposition of people being like, oh, he was a prisoner for so many years and he did this for me because my heart was bad. And I don't
Yeah.
know, there could have just been like things that they could have done. I think like even just showing like a younger Ross visiting Stearns in prison, like in a flashback or something like that, and just
Yeah.
acting like a dick to him. It's like easy, add some sympathy points to Stearns right there. It's just he feels underdeveloped, and that's what it is with him.
Yeah. And I guess the counter argument to that would be like, well, we got that in The Incredible Hulk, but as we've talked about, I mean, maybe we did. I don't remember. And that's the counter argument is I don't fucking remember that movie, and most of the audience doesn't. And you can put that on the audience. You can be like, well, it's later in the series. You like you should have remembered this thing from earlier. It's like, yeah, but if you're a writer on a movie and this is the 35th MCU movie, Incredible Hulk was the first. You should not be, and like no one had any inkling going into this that you would need like to refresh yourself on the Incredible Hulk. Like that's not a smart expectation to write your movie with, that your audience will just remember the character dynamics of these people they haven't seen since 2008. Like,
yeah,
like, dude, like fucking Bush was still president when this movie came out. I think.
Oh
like,
my gosh,
we've lived many lifetimes since then.
It was such a simpler time.
No, we were just children.
We were just children. It just feels that way.
Yeah.
Nostalgia. I mean, yeah, God, I do miss the MCU villains of old, you know, the Killmonger, Loki, Thanos. Like, they were. I know we're not always going to get great antagonists, like we were saying. Like, not every movie is going to be a home run. Like, there's going to be some misses, just like any kind of TV show. But antagonists are central to MCU films, to these narratives. And if you don't have a good one, it really kind of just takes the wind out of your sails, you know?
Yeah. Well, it also, and maybe this Sidewinder Serpent Society is a Captain America villain. I don't know. Apparently, Serpent Society was the joke reveal title before they said it was going to be Civil War or Winter Soldier. I don't know. But why is Captain America fighting a Hulk villain, like two Hulk villains?
Yeah.
He fighting a Captain America villain, or are these Captain America villains? I guess I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm so confused.
They don't feel like a great fit for Captain America villains. But I don't know. One other thing I found a little bit of annoying, but I think it's a necessary evil. Also, is just there's some of the stuff about Sam's self-doubt at being Captain America that feels a little bit like a retread of what we got in the Falcon Soldier. Like, I feel like he kind of got past that in that show, and there's not really much reason given for him to like second guess himself again here. However, I think this is part of the like path the MCU has taken with their shows, which kind of diminishes the value of all of it. Is like they're writing the shows in such a way that you can skip them if you want to. So they are retreading familiar ground for us, for the audience that chose to skip that show, which is kind of like, I don't know. Commit or don't to it, or tell the TV show stories about characters that are going to be more in the periphery of the movies instead. I don't know. It's fine. It's not a huge deal. It's just a little bit about this movie, and it provided the Bucky cameo, which I liked enough. So
yeah,
let's talk about some positive though. We've been kind of on this movie for an hour.
I agree. Because there are some nice things in this movie that we'll acknowledge we liked, like, you know, the we already talked about the Celestial and the Indian Ocean. All things considered, I do enjoy how they worked this into the movie. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's logical, and it's just nice for that to be acknowledged, and for everyone to be like, "Yeah, that happened. Let's go investigate it a little closer." Like
Yeah.
that would be insane if something like that happened. And yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we haven't really even talked about Sam Wilson as Captain America, but I think that this character's awesome. Anthony Mackie does a great job here. He's a great choice for this role, and yeah, he's just really good in this movie. I think like he's one of the bright spots.
Yes, I agree. I think he gets a lot more interesting material in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Especially when he's talking to Isaiah in that show, and Isaiah's like, "Why would a black man want to be Captain America?" And then Sam has to reckon with that and
Yeah.
find the role around himself in a way. And I think that stuff was all great. There's not as much of that in this movie. There's a little bit,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think too his relationship with Isaiah is I think one of the stronger parts of the movie for me. I think it had great build up from their dynamic in the show, and it felt to me like they'd organically evolved that relationship since we last saw them. They still have their like points of friction a little bit, but you can tell they really really care about each other. And I like the training regimen that Isaiah
Yeah.
doing at that gym.
Yeah, that was fun. I liked that sequence. That was a good sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I like we got some a handful of good humorous moments between Sam, Danny, and Isaiah. This nice little trio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that they worked pretty well off of each other in most instances, and like it was kind of humorous to see like kind of just like Isaiah, who's an old man, grappling with technology, and like trying
Oh
to
right,
navigate
yeah.
it, and they're showing him how to do it, and he's like, I know how to do it,
Yeah.
kind of.
I I also liked the like sort of Manchurian candidate element there, where like the brainwashing of this guy who's
Yeah,
doing nothing wrong and putting him in a situation. Um, I yeah.
yeah,
I liked to the I said this once I realized that Sam's version of Captain America keeps the wings. That was one thing I was like when because like both Bucky and Sam are Captain America at different points in the comics, and I was like, oh, when they were deciding which one to give it to, I was like, I mean, just give it to Bucky, I guess, because he doesn't fucking have anything else other than a metal arm. Like Sam gets to fly around and like do cool flips and
yeah,
shit. And then someone was like, oh, he keeps the wings. It's like, oh, Sam.
yeah. Give it to Sam.
Because he has a totally different fighting style to Steve because it incorporates flight and the wings. I don't like his little helmet. I feel like every
Yeah,
MCU now has like a nanotech helmet. I also think maybe they made him a bit too OP with his technology, probably in
just
anticipation
a
of
little bit.
people being like, oh no, he doesn't have the serum. How can he even do all this? Meh, 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 meh. They're like making him too overpowerful because of woke or some shit like that. And they were probably like, well, he just has a lot of tech. But it would have been maybe a bit more compelling if he has all of that tech at the start, and then over the course of the story, he loses access to it because it breaks, or since he
Hmm.
rogue a little bit, he has to rely on like a less technologically advanced version of the suit, and he has to win like with his heart. Um,
Yeah, that
to
would
a
have been
lesser
nice.
degree, that's what Steve does in the Winter Soldier. Remember, he abandons the modern suit and goes back to the one from World War II for the final act. It's like, I don't know, strip yourself back down to basics and then win on the merit of your character rather than the technology you use. But it's fine.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I liked. We've already kind of talked about it a little bit, but Harrison Ford as Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Really liked him. He had a good performance, and yeah, one of the more compelling parts of the movie. So, well done, Mister Jones. You did it again.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed what people have joked about is the least realistic part of the movie: a U.S. president fully taking accountability for their actions.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching this character who we've only known as like a total dickhead for years, genuinely like at the end of his life trying to turn over a new leaf and be a better person. Like I don't remember if he said he was like blipped away in the snap or if he stayed.
I can't remember.
I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But it's like obviously the what he has seen in the world like changed him. He's like, I was wrong about the Sokovia Accord stuff and the Avengers. Like, if it weren't for you guys, like half of humanity wouldn't even be here. And he's trying to make things better so he can reconnect with his daughter. And then he takes full accountability at the end and puts himself in that prison, which is how he gets to see his daughter again, who is also from the Incredible Hulk. She was the love interest in the Incredible Hulk. That's
Wow.
Tyler from the Lord of the Rings. That's Arwen.
Yeah, like I was surprised for a second. I was like, Liv, what is Liv Tyler doing here? I was so confused about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but I'll say also, yeah, I enjoyed the Red Hulk Captain America fight. I
Mm-hmm.
think it is overall satisfying to watch, and
Yeah.
it is. I liked it overall. It was pretty good, and I did like the location with
Cherry
um,
blossoms.
the cherry blossoms. Thank you. Yeah, those I thought that was very pretty. That was
Mm.
a nice idea. So kudos to whichever writer thought that up.
Yeah. I said it already, but I like the Bucky cameo, even though some of the stuff he says is, again, a retread of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I also like that he's running for Congress. I think that's.
Mm-hmm.
I one thing I enjoyed talking back to the Falcon and Winter Soldier was just that the idea of MCU heroes having to exist and sometimes have jobs outside of the superhero shit, even if it's kind of weird in execution sometimes, like the fact that Sam is left in a position unable to pay bills despite like working under Tony Stark and his like billionaire superhero enterprise for so long. It's kind of fucked up, but whatever.
Yeah, right.
But a character like Bucky running for Congress with his past is just honestly super interesting. Like, on the one hand, fought the Nazis, like literally in the 40s, fought the Nazis, boom, winning every election. But then, Soviet assassin. Americans don't like that very much, especially the Soviet part. The assassin thing, Americans are on board with. Soviet stuff, though, they don't like that.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
That'll raise some eyebrows, and
yeah.
yeah, who knows how many ideas from the 1950s he's still clinging on to as well inside. But I'm sure he's changed a lot, and we saw that in the
Yeah.
series too.
Mm-hmm.
But I would vote
Yeah.
for Bucky. That is my vote.
Yeah, and we see that he, based on the Thunderbolts trailer, he wins. He has the little pin. He's a congressperson in that.
Oh, 100% on board.
But I like the dynamic between these two characters, and it would be cool if we get to see it again. I think some people have like an inkling that Bucky might die in the Thunderbolts, which is possible, but I don't know. I kind of hope he doesn't. He doesn't deserve to die.
Nah, Bucky's awesome. He deserves to have a long, happy life.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, do you have any like closing thoughts? I have a couple.
No, I mean, I've said what I've wanted to say. I think.
Yeah.
What do you have to close on?
Well, I hate doing this. I don't like ending our reviews on negatives, but
Mm-hmm.
I think the most damning thing about this movie is we saw it just a week ago, and a lot of it's already kind of starting to fade from my memory a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's just not much here. I have high hopes though for the rest of the MCU's 2025.
Yeah.
Daredevil's coming back. I still need to watch season 3, so maybe I'll try to cram that in. I think Thunderbolts looks great. Apparently, the test screenings have started coming back too, and they're really positive. Fantastic Four looks awesome.
Yeah, it does.
And I really, really hope we get to see like a really strong Captain America movie for Mackey's next turn as the character. I don't know when that will be because their slate for the next several years is Captain America lists other than the Avengers movies. But
Well, I mean, if he's just like a leader for the Avengers or some kind of
mhm.
team, I'm on board with that. I don't know if he needs solo movies anymore, but
Maybe.
maybe he does.
Yeah, I just like I want him to get his due. Apparently,
Yes.
he's contracted for like 10 years. He said, um, and then he's done after that. I think he said he'll be like 60 at that point or something. Um, and then yeah, he's like in a weird spot for he's like the legacy hero Captain America now, but also
Hmm.
he's been around for the majority of the MCU and he's been
Yeah.
at even longer. Like it's
Oh
I
yeah.
love Anthony
I
Mackie though. I think he's great. I want to see a new roster of Avengers. We haven't gotten that yet. Like
I know. Yeah.
I
I'm
want to see
curious about
like
that.
Carol Danvers and Sam Wilson and Yelena, whatever the last name is, Bucky,
Hmm.
like Doctor Strange, Shang Chi, like Black Panther.
Yeah.
That there's a
Get,
lineup. Do give us a
yeah.
movie
That's perfect.
Avengers, and
That is.
not have it be a multiverse battle world where every version of every hero that's ever existed in a movie fights each other on a planet.
Yeah. That's. I don't know if we need that. But
It's what we're getting.
yay. Well, hopefully, yeah. The rest of the movies this year will be good. I'm sure that they
Mm.
will be. I got high hopes for those other ones too. Um, yeah. Anything else before we transition to other stuff?
Nah, let's do it. What
All
do you got?
right. So other stuff where we're talking about things that we're reading, watching, doing, playing, exploring. Um, Still plowing through Invincible season 3. I'm not caught up with everything yet, but I'm really liking the direction I've gotten through the first 3 episodes, and I'm like, this
Okay.
is just as like the last season. I'm like, they're taking it's so true to the comics, and they're taking things and improving them, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
loving that. Um, One of my favorite shows also came back on HBO, The White Lotus. Woo! Uh, Season 3, its final season. This show is just so great.
Yeah.
This one takes place in Thailand, in the Thailand White Lotus Resort, and so far it is really weird. We got some odd families in the mix this time
Isn't
around.
Walton Goggins in this season?
Yeah, Walton Goggins is in it. Arnold Schwarzenegger's son is in it.
I
I
saw
can't
that.
remember his name. Um,
Nathan?
I think
Son?
so, but he's in it. He plays a fucking Chad of a character. He, I'm very curious to see where this season goes. They're always so great. And I also finished reading my sister's book,
Yeah.
Catalira, book 1, by Madeline Konigsberg. I would definitely recommend checking it out, not just because she's my sister, but it's a fun fantasy novel where you get to explore these just how this magic is interacting with this world. It's very rich. It's like a book about theology, how magic plays into theology, how it plays into like imperialism. Like there's so many cool
Cool.
things going on in this book, and demons. There's demons too. So
Demons.
I liked it a lot. Go check it out. What have you been up to, Dylan?
So I dipped my toes into Avowed a little bit. It's a new
Hmm.
fantasy RPG from the developer of Fallout New Vegas, The Outer Worlds, and the Pillars of Eternity games. It's actually set in the same universe as Pillars of Eternity. I haven't gotten like super into it yet, but it's a fun like update on the first person like Skyrim style combat, much more versatile than Skyrim was. And it seems like it's going to be very fun. I've heard the RPG elements of it, like from a storytelling point of view, leave a little bit to be desired, but apparently it's a fun world to explore, fun combat, and the voice actor who played Garrus Vicarian in Mass Effect is one of your companions, so that's always cool.
Cool. I'm into that.
Garrus is a fucking awesome character. Also, like you, I'm watching Invincible season 3. I am up to date on the season, so I've watched 5 episodes. We have 3 left, and we'll do an episode on that. I'm sure we've done episodes on the first 2 seasons as well already. I think one of our like earliest episodes is the first season.
I
Um,
think so. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I'm liking it. It's a good show. I'm really interested to see where it goes. Like there's things I can tell it's being telegraphed. It's like character is on the road to be a disaster if things go wrong.
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
um,
Don't you know?
yeah. And then I've been playing a lot of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. I'm having a really good time with it. I think like some of the dialogue is just a little bit too bubbly for me sometimes. The bubbliness is too consistent. I wish they had isolated it to like one or two of the characters instead of. But other than that, it's very cool. I really like the more cartoony art style actually that they went for. I know that was really divisive for a lot of people. And it
Mhm.
because it's like I am at an age where I don't really have a lot of time for open world games anymore. Um, the
Mhm.
occasional one is great, like a Tears of the Kingdom, where like they really lean into the open world as an exploration piece and not just like the checklist of things.
Yeah.
And I like the world design of Dragon Age: The Veilguard because it's not open world, but there are like these big zones that you can explore, and they loop back in on each other in interesting ways. So it's like you'll be exploring in one area, and then you open up a door, and it's like, oh, this is from the place from earlier. It was locked from the other side, but now I'm here. It's very video gamey too in its design.
Cool.
You'll turn around a corner, and there's just a fucking massive treasure chest, and it's all lit a video game treasure chest. It's like it feels charmingly retro in that way, you know.
I like that.
So that's fun, and I'm also. I mean, it's funny to say I'm getting towards the end of Brandon Sanderson's Wind and Truth because I still have like 300 pages left. But for a Stormlight book, that is close to the end. I'm on.
Mhm.
The structure of this one is very very neat because it's like slight spoiler, but at the end of book 4 they make an arrangement. It's like the war will end in this contest in 10 days, and the structure of book 5 is like day 1 we follow all the events in this day from all the characters' points of view. Day 2, day 3, day.
Mm.
So it's just an interesting different structure, like counting down to the last, the final showdown. I'm very anxious
That's
to see how it
cool.
all pans out, but
I
it's
like that.
I like it a lot. I like all of the Stormlight books. Book 4 I think was my least favorite. There's a reason I think I've identified for why it doesn't click as well for me. A certain character's point of view is absent from that book, and it really hurts it. But you know, I think he's gonna stick the landing here. But I've been like totally blind on the story. I'm excited to see how it ends. But
I get you.
that's it from my end, and I think that is going to do it for the show this week. As well.
Yeah. Thank you all very much for listening and tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation, and we'll be back next week or 2 weeks from now
2 weeks, yeah,
with another episode on something else, another movie.
yeah. I don't, I don't think we've decided what to do yet.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. God. And also, coming up later this year, we'll be doing our yearly Star Wars Day special rewind.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be releasing on May the 4th. It is on the sequel trilogy, which means we should probably start that project sooner rather than later. Also, speaking of Star Wars, the Andor trailer came out today.
Andor.
Oh my God.
It's
We'll
gonna
be
be so good.
on that later this year as well. So I guess
Woo!
things to look forward to in the TV realm from us. We'll get Invincible season 3. We'll get Thunderbolts. We'll get Andor. Those are 3 episodes for the April-May time frame.
Yeah,
But,
got lots of good stuff to look forward to. Yeah, can't wait for it. Well, until next week, where can people follow you online, Dylan?
oh, thank you. I forgot that part of the show. You can on Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at DDayMovies, on YouTube at DDayMovies. You can find us both here at Play Pause Rewind on your podcast platform of choice and on YouTube. Also on our second channel, Play Pause Rewind Videos. That is where Rewind lives, as well as podcast clips when I have time to make them. Niles, where can people find you online?
You can follow me on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. That's
right.
it for now.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for watching or listening. We really appreciate it. If you like the show, like, subscribe, give a nice review, share it with your friends or family. Yeah, thank you all so much. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.